And I want to start with Mel Gibson because Mel is kind of an interesting guy. And I understand Hollywood has tried to cancel him, but Joe Rogan is bringing him back. And I think it's meaningful that he is, because Mel has a lot of good things to share. Now, you might argue he's just an actor, and yes, I would agree. A really great one, by the way. But it is undeniable that some of the things that he shared on the Joe Rogan podcast is meaningful and deserves to be interacted with. Not the least of which is this fantastic statement.
Who gets back up under his own power? Buddha didn't do that shit.
Yeah, that's right. Buddha did not rise from the grave. But he did eat a lot, oddly, for a guy that was trying to flee temptation and pleasure. Anyway, all that to say, one of the things that Mel talked about that I think is really interesting is he talked about the double standard in Hollywood. As he was preparing for Passion 1, he really experienced it and faced a lot of opposition, and now he's in the process of trying to do Passion 2 and experiencing some of that same opposition. So here's a little bit of what he had to say about that.
Especially with something like the Passion that I did, the written word was very important because it was, you got all those books, the Bible, you've got the different Gospels and stuff that people are quite familiar with. Half the time, they didn't even need to read the subtitles. They could look at it and know what was going on.
That was a crazy movie because it was a great movie, but it seemed like there was resistance to that movie.
Oh, yeah. No, there was...
which I thought was very strange. There was like Hollywood resistance to that movie. Like people didn't like that you were making it, it seemed like.
Yeah, there was a lot of opposition to it. And I don't know. I think if you ever hit on that subject matter, you're going to get people going because...
Of course.
It's big subject matter, and it's like... and my contention is, when I was making it, it was like, you're making this film, and the idea was that we're all responsible for this, that his sacrifice was for all mankind, and that for all our ills and all the things in our fallen nature, it was a redemption. So, and I believe that, I actually am. I was born into a Catholic family. I'm very Christian in my beliefs, So I do actually believe this stuff to the full. So depicting that was an honor, but it was also, you got the daylights beat out of you for it.
Yeah, because there's resistance, first of all, from secular Hollywood, where for whatever reason, Christianity is the one religion that you're allowed to disparage.
Yeah.
Christianity is the one religion where people... all these progressive, open-minded, leftist people, they'll embrace all these different religions until it comes to Christianity.
Now, I can't wait for the Passion 2 to come out. It's been teased for a while now, so who knows if it's ever going to happen, but he has experienced a lot of opposition in Hollywood. Now, the first thing I have to mention to you, because there are some people out there who have the intellectual virus that is impacting many on the internet today, and immediately when you think Hollywood and somebody stopping the movie about Jesus that Mel wants to make, they immediately jump to the Jews. But it isn't the Jews. I mean, a simple tertiary glance at Hollywood will tell you that, no, it's godless secular nihilism actually that's to blame, because that town has been suffering with that ideology forever. Now, the reason I think that they do suffer from this kind of double standard that Mel is experiencing when it comes to Christianity is a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I think the vast majority of people in America, because they are so familiar with Christianity, at least in a very superficial way, they are exposed to Christianity, and therefore they think they understand it. They think they know it because it was maybe a part of their upbringing, or because it's such a major part of our culture and woven into the fabric of our society that therefore they think they understand it. But actually, really, in my experience, the vast majority of people who have interacted with Christianity, either whether it be from church or whether it be from the culture or whether it even be from the academy, have a very superficial understanding of Christianity. So, in other words, you always hate what you do not understand. So they attack Christianity because they think they understand it, but really they're just fighting a straw man. They have a cultural Christianity that they're attacking, but when you actually dig down to their understanding of Christianity, you realize they have no concept of Christianity. Now, before you run to the comment section and tell me that you really do because of all your experience in church, you're going to get me amening alongside of you, because I have problems too with the modern day church and how far it is away from a biblical form of Christianity. But I think we can all agree, at least at this point in time, that there are a lot of people out there, especially in the troll world, who think they understand Christianity and don't understand it at all. Just the other day, somebody commented on a post of mine and they said, Gandalf raised from the dead, so should we start worshiping him? The amount of ignorance that it takes to say something like that,
but the people are retarded,
is staggering. And I know, probably doesn't take much for me, but it is staggering just simply because that shows a lack of historical knowledge. It shows a lack of extra biblical literature. It shows a lack of understanding of archaeology and so much. But in my over 20 years of ministry, I've encountered a lot of this, a cultural Christianity that poses as the real thing, and so people fight that thing and they despise it, but it's like, you're not really even fighting Christianity, you're fighting a fabric of your own imagination. So all that to say, there is probably another secondary reason, and maybe a more important reason in which the people in Hollywood hate Christianity. And G.K. Chesterton said it well. He said this, that the Christian ideal has not been tried and found wanting, but rather been found difficult and left untried. So the vast majority of people who fight against Christianity, maybe they don't even realize this, but do so because they know it will cost them something. They know that there is a cross involved with Christianity, and if they have to bear that cross, they may lose something that they hold precious and dear to them. So it's really just subconsciously, they don't want to give up the cherished sin in their life, or whatever it is, that temptation that they love, their hedonistic lifestyle, and that's why they reject Christianity, because they know it will cost them something. Now, this is why the man who will not settle down and get married also rejects marriage. He thinks that he's going to be awesome in his late 60s and he will be bar hopping until the day that he dies and will be desirable by the ladies. And he does all of it because he thinks to himself, well, I don't want to pay the price that comes along with actually settling down with one woman. Now, the real problem here is that actually, he's only hurting himself because he doesn't understand the great reward of true love that comes with being with a lifelong partner, and the true love that comes by raising a family and helping impact the next generation. So you get greater reward than you can ever expect by actually getting married and settling down and starting a family. But the individual that thinks that sexual conquest will truly bring meaning in his life is far, far too afraid of giving up on that lesser good, because he doesn't understand how much of a greater good awaits him. But this is exactly why the people in Hollywood reject Christianity. They don't want to let go of whatever vice that they have and take hold of Christ, because they don't understand the reward of truly being a Christian and knowing Christ Jesus deep in their soul. So all that to say this is probably the main reason why Hollywood rejects Christianity so much and despises it so much, because it is inconvenient to their lifestyle. And maybe there's a third reason underneath all of those things. There's an idea that services the godless nihilism of Hollywood that is prominent in the culture, and Mel Gibson talks about that as well right here.
What are your thoughts on evolution?
Wow. The Darwin thing?
Yeah.
I don't really go for it.
No?
Yeah. Ice Age, dinosaurs, what did they turn into? I mean, things became extinct at some point. I don't think I was some kind of legless thing that crawled out of the ocean. I don't think I came from that. I think I was created.
Now, I love it when simple people honestly express things that deserve that kind of simplicity. I understand that evolution and biology and the chemical makeup of the human being, all of that stuff is a big topic. But at the end of the day, you can actually deduce it down to some very simple principles. And Mel Gibson just did it for us here. The idea of secular materialism is so preposterous that it boggles the mind. Now, this is the reason why, by the way, that people have to personally attack Christians. And this is why the vast majority of secular humanists and godless nihilists out there and materialists will quickly say, oh, well, you believe in fairy tales. The reason that they jump to those kind of ad hominem personal attack is because if you actually get underneath the ideas of the materialist, you will realize how laughably ridiculous they are. I mean, just ask the secular materialist to explain the origin of life, the origin of the universe. When they start talking to you about primordial soups in which salamanders kind of just swum out of and then eventually became conscious, meaning-seeking human beings, you'll realize you are fully within the territory of somebody who is very close to the loony bin. These are fairy tales of the highest order. And then even talk to them about not only their cosmology, but where objective morality comes from. And then when you realize that meatballs in space, stardust that just have chemical reactions in their brain, cannot actually define an objective basis for morality, you'll realize that, well, according to the worldview of the materialist, we could just evolve out of the morality that we presently have right now and then develop a totally different society where, let's just say, the big R word becomes the way for procreation. And then push aside the fact that that society doesn't even deserve to exist if its only means of procreation is the R word. You would have no way of determining whether or not that R word is actually immoral or not, because scientific naturalism, materialism, doesn't actually tell you what is true. And it certainly doesn't tell you what is good or bad. It can only tell you what is, and very often only within certain probabilities. Well, we believe this is because of this percentage of data. But they cannot tell you what is true. They cannot tell you what is beautiful. They cannot tell you what is good. They can only tell you what happens to be, but not why it's there in the first place. So all that to say, the godless nihilism of Hollywood is buttressed by the secular materialism of our age, and it is perfectly morally benighted and totally laughable. Now, the problem with all of this, and Mel Gibson unearthed this for us as well, is that when people who are in control of a large portion of society, in control of the media, and as I've said before on the show, show me who writes your songs and I don't care who writes your laws. Media is an impactful aspect of culture. So when these powerful people are in control, and because they don't like the cost of Christianity and then therefore service their ideology with the morally and mentally bankrupt idea of materialism and put that in its place, ultimately what that starts to do is unravel a society that was predicated upon Christian principles. And Mel Gibson talks about it here.
How close are we to collapse? And what are the things that lead to collapse? It's environmental stuff. It's human sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that.
Kinda.
We do.
Yeah.
The human sacrifice aspect is alive and well in our society.
Now ask the secular nihilist if our society is in collapse, and they'll say, no way. We're doing just fine. But we can't define the difference between a man and a woman, whether or not men should compete in women's sports. We cannot decide right now if children should consent to life-altering surgery, and we cannot decide, based upon the secular ideas of our age, whether or not a baby is actually just an inconvenience that should be disposed of. There aren't some secret guilds in Hollywood sacrificing people. No, this is not what we're talking about. No, we're actually literally talking about a pagan America that will literally sacrifice children on the altar of better weather. Now, I know this is testing the credulity of the secular materialist out there. They're thinking, that's ridiculous. We're not like pagans of old. We don't sacrifice our children to the gods so that we can procure better weather for ourselves. Oh yeah, well then you better tell that to Yale's School of the Environment. And this comes by virtue of Yale Environment 360, and complete with a picture of ethnic women with their children. And the headline says, how preventing unwanted pregnancies can help on the climate. And then of course we have the Human Rights Watch, which was funded by George Soros to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And they say this: it's time to combine the fights for climate change and reproductive justice. Now, for those of you who think that reproductive justice encompasses many things, you are correct, it does, but it also includes abortion. And that's probably mostly what they mean, because go deep in this article and they'll say it themselves. It says, research affirms what we already know to be true. Of course we know this to be true. Obviously. So obvious that all communities' right to a healthy environment should be in the bucket together with access to safe abortion, birth control, family planning, and maternal health care. Of course, we all know this, that if you want a good climate, we also need to put in that same bucket aborting our baby. After all, the climate can have an impact on our children. It can make them premature. It can make them have to come into a world where they have to breathe the same air that we're breathing right now. Would you want that for your child? So it's better, instead of doing that to your child, to kill them. Folks, I hope we can understand by now. We desperately need Jesus. Hollywood surely needs Jesus, and societal collapse is coming for us without him.
So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.